Welcome. Welcome back. Lisa's coming in hot and she's dealing with a cold. So we're going to see how this goes today. But as always, we got an episode packed full of information for you. Today is going to be a topic that everybody does go through. I know I say this all the time, but really this one is special, especially if you're working in a corporate environment, learning how to maybe be the mediator in a conversation. And so we're going to explore this a little bit more because Lisa's actually just got through a little coaching session on it. So she's in
Sure
turn
did.
going to coach us about it. But before we get into the topic, if you're new to the channel, welcome. For those of you that have been around, I'm Nathan. This is Lisa as always. We are the founders of Habitual Growth. And this right here is the podcast where excuses come to die, discipline is built, and lives are changed. Ultimately, we want you to lead the most successful life that you possibly can. That starts by making yourself better and the world a better place so you can do more, live more, and be more. All right. So Lisa, we're talking about mediating conversations today, but really this came from a question that you had asked your coach. So can you give us a little bit of context, more specifically, what is the question that you were asking and why is it relevant for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I do love talking about things in real time. And I will also give a shameless plug, I guess, for coaching, because I think too many people, and I did it for a long time, didn't invest in coaching for themselves with someone that was maybe, you know, 5, 10 years ahead of them, a couple of steps up on the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a disservice to yourself, because even though it might not seem like a financial investment that's worthwhile in the short term, I've actually grown leaps and bounds over the course of my career by investing in coaching and getting perspectives of people that are further along. So that's my shameless plug for coaching, because I do think it is really important when people are looking to grow, just the same way that you might get a personal trainer or a nutritionist if you're going to do some healthy habits. Same thing goes for your career. So look for people that maybe can help you grow in ways that you might not be able to otherwise see. So today, we were having a coaching session, and my question was related to influencing decisions and leading conversations without having the direct authority to do so. So essentially, how do you place yourself in the middle of a conversation or a challenge or a frustration between either two parties, two groups, two people, where you will have to essentially mediate a conversation and come up and be the bridge so that a solution can actually be formed?
Yeah, and I think that's a good one. And I know when we started out this episode, I kind of said this is like if you're in a corporate environment, but the reality is, of course, this happens all the time. Anytime that there's two sides, maybe you're thrown into some sort of relationship where you're trying to help two parties kind of see eye to eye. I actually do some of this, what you're going to talk about with my own kids. Me, I didn't know it was going to be a topic today. But I find myself doing it more with my kids than I actually do with adults. And that's just leading people to the answer. So you talked a little bit about, when we were chatting about this offline, you talked a little bit about don't use how or don't use why, use how, like you're trying to create this bridge. So first off, kind of what goes into the conversation? How do you really set it up with the various parties so that there is equal playing ground, if you will, and I guess buy-in to kind of find a solution?
Yeah. So what I learned today was it's a good idea to kind of broach the conversation on a scale base. So giving people something to react to that isn't bad or good, yes or no. So avoiding a statement or a question like, do you feel like communication is going well between yourself and this other person? That's a very yes or no answer and leaves you with nowhere to go, but rather phrasing the question in terms of a rating scale. And that could be a 0 to 10. It could be a smiley face, if you needed a visual. It could be, a grade in school. How would somebody rate it? And then based on that rating, as long as it's not an absolute 0 or a complete negative, it gives you a bridge to say, all right, well, it appears to me that it's not as optimal as you would like it to be, but it's not completely terrible. So tell me what's working well. And you start to build a bridge by focusing on the small positives that then allow you to ask follow-up questions around what you just talked about, phrasing it as a what or a how. What would have to be true to get it to this? How do you think it would look if it was you rated it X, Y, and Z, and phrase it in that way and kind of direct the conversation from a positive versus a black, white, yes, no, negative mindset. This is terrible. It's not working.
which which we know happens quite a bit. So And I want to continue to pull on this story. I think that's great. I think the framework is really helpful. But this is a really relevant topic because I think a lot of people and some of the feedback that we get actually from habitual growth users, I mean, even listeners of this podcast are, hey, I want to do these things, but I just don't, it's out of my control. I just don't have any power, or like, I honestly don't really care that much, or hey, I've got too many other things to do. And as you're talking, it kind of reminds me of a couple of different vantage points that we also talk about. One is switching your perspective to see the positive, right? We talk about that all the time, how it really is important to see the positive, to start to bring positivity into your life, to relationships, to your skill sets, building your confidence, your self belief. And it really starts by putting yourself out there. So even if you feel like you don't have a stake in the game, or it's not your responsibility, but you're dealing with some of the backlash, level up, try to build those bridges, show that in an environment you are the leader, you are building those skill sets to become the person that actually does have a stake in the game or can drive the conversation. And that's a lot of internal leadership. So I wanted to point that out because it's the positivity, it's developing skill sets for certain situations like this. And then it's also, how do you frame the conversation, right? How do you go to both parties and say, hey, we know that this isn't working. There's some issues here. So today we're going to sit down, we're going to level set. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build a bridge. Tell me what's working over here. Tell me what's working over here. Okay. Why are we not seeing eye to eye? How can we be a little bit better?
Yeah. Yeah, and I do wanna go back to your first point because that's an incredibly important one, especially as I've walked through my career. The number of people that will step up or step into a situation where they don't feel like they have direct authority is very few, and oftentimes it's because of the fact that someone feels like they need someone to say, "You have direct authority, you have permission to do something." So they just wait. But the people that actually grow the most or make the biggest impact are those that go into that space really with good intent and trying to figure out how to either be a bridge or come up with a solution or get just communication flowing without really knowing exactly what that path forward looks like. But they're doing it in good faith and they become people that are the most impactful in the organization.
Yeah. And I would even argue, because, Sharon, who we're gonna air her episode on the Habitual Growth podcast here coming up in the next couple of weeks. But Sharon is a board advisor for us, but she's also a senior leader in tech as a female. And I only say that last part because, right, it's lonely out there. You don't oftentimes have a lot of like female leaders in the tech industry, and she happens to be one of them. But she gets a lot of respect because of how she shows up, how she's able to communicate effectively, how she's able to bring parties together. And so again, just reiterating the importance of this, you may be thinking of this as, hey, here's one conversation, here's an issue I have to deal with. But in the broad sense, this is a rung on that ladder. It's helping you advance. It's helping you work on leadership skills. And people look to those leaders as, how do we bridge this? Because oftentimes people that do have a stake in the game, the great leaders are going to find that common ground. They're going to bring people together and help them communicate. It's the not so great leaders that are just do this because I said so. And you don't want to be that type of leader. That's not a inspirational, motivation, or aspirational leader. That's just somebody who was put into authority. And we have all talked about toxic bosses or had a couple in our lives. We know that that doesn't work out well. That doesn't make people feel welcome.
Yeah. I know there might be people that are thinking, hey, I own a business, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you're like, this topic isn't relevant to me. And actually the framework of what we're talking about is incredibly relevant, whether you're in a professional environment or not. Because if you think about even from a personal development standpoint or goal setting and achieving, the framing of what you say to yourself, you
Mm,
can use this thought process and the what and the how instead of the why to actually help you move forward, because it does frame your mind in a more positive, productive manner to come up with creative solutions versus why am I always so bad at this? Why can't I lose weight? Why is my relationship with my husband so terrible? Instead of what would have to be true for me to have X? How
mm.
would I get there? Who do I need to connect with to be able to understand, what the capabilities are to be able to do X, Y, and Z? And so just wanted to call that out in case people are like, well, that's great. You live in the corporate environment. It's not applicable to me, but it actually does filter over into personal development and growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to your coaching session today. So we've learned about the asking the what and the how, in addition to the why. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at the situation and I think, hey, there is a why. Why isn't something happening? Right? That's different than obviously the what and the how. There's a how would this look, or how can I behave differently to do this? And as an example, my wife and I were out taking a walk yesterday and we started reviewing our goals. We started doing our 2025 reflection. And she's like, how are you doing? Full transparency. I was like, not great. Like a lot of goals have not been hit. Right. And there's the why is that? Right. She did ask that question. And my response was, well, I wasn't watching it closely enough. I kind of felt like I really didn't care about this goal anymore, or I fell off and just, put it to the side because I had already lost it anyways. There was a lot of excuses in there. And that was a different, listening to this conversation, that's different than how can you get back on track? What can you do the rest of the year to get as far as you can towards these other goals? And so, what happens after the what and the how questions that you ask? Like what occurs next in that conversation with people?
Yeah, so let's go back to why first. So the reason that why is less optimal to use as a language is one, especially when there are two people in a situation that maybe don't think something is going as well as it could. Immediately when you ask why, the first thought is it's somebody's fault. And so it immediately invokes a negative blaming mentality versus what's going well, what could be improved, how could that look if it was improved, changes that to be more of a creative, collaborative mindset. So just calling that out, because that's why, and I learned that today, why you should limit the use of why in those situations and focus on what and how. The next step is once you get to what could this look like? How could we get there? Then it's what kind of, my coach called it like an operating mechanism. So what kind of operating mechanism needs to be in place to allow us to maintain? So how do we need to communicate? What information do you need to see? What cadence do we need to have a conversation around this? And who's going to own all the different pieces? And again, you can directly apply those to your professional career or even to your personal relationships, like you were just talking about with your wife. Hey, I'm working on these goals. I feel like I'm further behind. Here's what I need to do to get them back on track or to feel like I've made progress by the end of the year. Okay, what kind of operating mechanism do you need to be successful? Well, I need you to check in with me once a week. I need you to hold me accountable here. I will share this information with you when we have the conversations. And here's how I'm going to measure success. So I think you can take that type of operating mechanism, if you will, and do it both professionally and individually in personal development.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's wonderful. I think, like I said, it's a broad topic, but I think it helps frame things in the right way. As we've said already many times, this can be applied to any situation that you are dealing with another party in. I think it's kind of hard if you're dealing with AI or something technical based, but if it is people that are coming at this from two different perspectives, there's a lot that can be mined here. And you said this best. It is the framing, it is the setup. And so I like to think about this type of stuff as one, what can I try that's new to drive the conversation? Because I think that is number one, it tests my skills. Two, it helps with things like selling. Like, what am I doing differently to see if I get a different response from people? So don't always approach it the same way and be like, well, that was terrible. I'm going to do the same exact thing in
We
this
do the exact same
conversation.
thing.
Right. But I think lastly, the other thing from my perspective that I think is really important here is it's the permission thing, right?
Mhm.
So we are all leaders. We have to be leaders for ourselves. And I reflect on my time in corporate America. And one of the things that always surprised me is like once the conversation got flowing, everybody seemed to feel a little bit better about contributing, right? But it is that first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes where you're getting the conversation set up and people are getting a little bit warmer and then, okay, nothing's going to happen to me if I speak up. And so if you can be that person, if you can be the leader and spearhead the conversation and just set things up, even if it's not perfect, it will get other people involved and the conversation will start flowing a lot more organically and you'll get a lot more done. And that is going to shine the light back on you, the person that helped facilitate that conversation, because you were willing to step up, be a leader in that scenario, and help champion the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I maybe to illustrate the point of like getting the conversation right started. So when you are opening the conversation, trying to find a solution or a bridge or open communication, when you start with something, a question or a comment, realize that people are already coming to the table with preconceived beliefs. They have beliefs about what is happening and the other people or functions that are sitting across the table with them. And the last thing that you want to do is phrase a question or say a statement that reinforces the belief that they already have, because that is going to kick the wall up a little bit more and a little bit more. So what you try to do is open the conversation in a way that acknowledges, hey, things aren't optimal. Let's talk about what's going well first. And how do we get to where we need to? Because then people will sit back and go, okay, someone's heard me that it's not going well. And you've now disarmed them from pointing a finger or blaming or reinforcing a belief in real time to say, maybe there's an alternate way, and I'm open to hearing what the next steps in this conversation might be.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is great. Coaching in real time. And guess what? You learn better when you coach somebody else. So I know this is going to stick for you. I look forward to hearing how the situation and the conversation turns out for you next week. And for everybody that has made it through this episode, thank you for watching. Please tune in, subscribe to the channel. We're excited to have you here. And as always, if anything comes up where you want to hear more feedback on specific topics like this, or you have something that is impacting your own personal life and you'd like to hear us talk about it, share it, comment below, or you can find us at info@habitualgrowth.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
All right. Good to see you. Take care. Bye.